my advice to people is just be respectful and give somebody the time of day when they're really low, because you don't know how much that will actually help a person.
This podcast is proudly supported by the Ōtara Network Action Committee, ōNAC Community-Owned, Community-Driven and Community-Led.
Konnichiwa and welcome to We Otara podcast. My name is Vincent Tyrone Vitulino. I want you to remember my name because you're part of my family. So along with myself, we got an awesome team. I don't know if you heard about them, but this awesome team called ōNAC. ōNAC are an amazing group of people who look out for Otarians by Otarians. Our amazing chairperson by the name of Jane Lotu and her group look out for Otarians. So if you're looking out for them, this podcast is sponsored by them. Now, Will, this is the second time I got happy about this. This is the second time that we're going into this podcast. I'm happy about my guest. This guest is a former MIT president and chairperson. She was the last chairperson, if I remember correctly, as well as Otara's most wanted, as in talent and singing and cooking. I don't know if that's how it is. We'd like to welcome her. Naomi, welcome to our show.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you for having me here, Will, Vinny.
I've been planning this
I feel honoured.
forever. I've been planning this forever. Me and Will were just sitting in our boardroom with a dartboard going, Naomi's turn. All right, perfect.
No, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. It's awesome. Now, I like to always start off with our guests with their amazing journey. So, briefly explain to us, how was your journey like when you first started off here on our beautiful earth in Otara?
Do you want specifics? No. No. Look, I brought up in Otara all my life, and I'm not even going to give you guys my age, but I've lived in Otara literally my whole life, yeah. When I was born, we were living on Hamel Road in East Tamaki.
Hey.
And we were living in a Housing New Zealand home, 2-bedroom, and there was 8 of us in a 2-bedroom house on Hamel Road. And the fortunate thing is that I had both my grandparents on. My mother's parents were at the bottom of Hamel Road, and my father's parents were just over through the alleyway on Blampede Road. So, yeah. And they were the Ponsonby crowd that moved out to Otara.
Hey.
So they migrated to New Zealand, and our grandparents, both sides, lived in Ponsonby before moving out to Otara. So, yeah, been part of the furniture for many, many years.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So my parents, they were, I'm going to butcher the name. They were in Grey Lynn. So my parents came from priest. So they were given the name to a priest. They were sent there, and that priest took care of them until they were ready to basically move on from where they were living in. And my mother and father found each other. I didn't add this in from last year, from last episode, which is they met at a social, and that's how they met up, and then that's how both of them became lovers. Apparently, from my mum's standpoint, because I asked her, apparently all the other girls got jealous of my mum. So,
well, your dad was a fine-looking man in the photos that we saw at his funeral. So, yeah, he was a fine-looking man.
Oh, absolutely. So, chased after and whatnot. So, yeah, so they moved to Otara. The first place was not at the place that we moved in. There was further down by East Tamaki, around in the corner, and then they moved from here. So when you mentioned your story like that, I was like, we all the family were close by, so they were not too far from us. One lived basically in Clover Park, and another one lived near Otara Beds Road. Yeah. So I know that feeling.
But it's funny because both my parents are Cook Islanders, and I would say they're a tropical fruit salad, really. A bit of this and a bit of that. But they met each other here in New Zealand.
Hey.
Of all places. I think back I think, well, what was it like in the islands back then before migrating here to New Zealand? But I know my father was sent here by my grandmother, his mother, to support her back in the islands. So he was given to a family over here where he came here and worked and sent money back to the islands to get the rest of the family over. And then slowly everyone's come over to New Zealand, and the younger siblings were born here in New Zealand. So, yeah, some good stories, really great stories growing up, listening to both sides of the family. Yeah.
So when do you fit in the picture? When does Naomi come into this picture of awesomeness?
Well,
we don't need to know about your age. Don't worry about it.
So I'm number 5 of 6. Well, 8 actually. We've got 2 half sisters, and they're Māori, part Kuki. And so I'm number 5 out of the 8. There's 6 girls, 6 of us, and 2 brothers. But us girls are very domineering in the family, very strong-minded, strong-willed. And I think we kind of, my brothers, I think they get their humbleness from my mum's dad, my grandfather. Yeah, so, yeah, we're a tropical fruit salad day, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
Because, I know who I am as a person. I'm a mother first. I'm a mother of 3. I've got 2 daughters and a son. And I'm driven by my values. And that's what drives me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back to the number of siblings and then your own children, what was it like between the 2 generation differences? Because you've seen through your own vision in your kids at the moment now. How was it like? What was the difference between your growing up to their growing up?
My growing up, I think we had a lot of freedom. So, between the grandparents, my mum's parents were kind of free-spirited, they just let us have fun every time we went over there. My father's parents, or my grandmother, she was very strict, very, very hard, loving, but very, very strict. Yeah. So we'd always kind of gravitate to my mum's side of the family where, we were a lot more happier. My grandfather taught us, if you ever want anything in life, you've got to work for it. So we would always be over there in the weekend, and my pocket money was $3. And the boys, I don't know why they got $5, but my grandparents had a huge section, so they would get paid $5 to mow the lawns. And so that's where we got our taste for money. But that came with responsibilities. If you wanted money, you have to work for it. $3 was a lot of money in those days. Bubblegums and lollies were only 1 cent, growing up. And I'd send the uncle down, or uncle to us, if you want anything at the shop, give me some money. And so I always used to say, can you get me $1 worth of bubblegums? And they were only 1 cent, so he'd come home with like 2 bags full, brown bags full of bubblegums, because there was 100 bubblegums in there, 1 cent. So, and I'd sit there and chew on those by myself and not share it.
Why would you need to? You only had $3.
I only had $3, but, with the other $2, we could go up and buy nail polish for $2 back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's when they had a pharmacy at Flatbush Shops years ago. Yeah,
I remember that because not too far from where I live, Piako Street, it was if I remember correctly, there was a really good fish and chip shop, and there was the dairy that's been there for ages, and then there was some, if I remember, it was like a toy store or something nearby, and my sister would explain about going over to the shop with about like $1, and she'll buy her Papa Jacks, and then she'll buy like a 50-cent Freda and her chips.
Yeah, no, your sister's right. There was the toy shop, the pharmacy, the first dairy, the meat shop, the second dairy, and the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
Now you've got a laundromat, Tanya's shop. I think it's just one whole dairy and the bakery.
Yeah, and you just think, wow, there's a lot of changes that had happened so many years ago, So coming into my next question is, you've been in Ōtara for so long because we had the talk about it. How much of Ōtara have you seen so far that has changed from your years of growing up?
Oh, it's really changed dramatically. I mean, I think back to my childhood and when we moved into our home on Blair Place off Alexandra Crescent, which was our backyard was literally what MIT is now. And then you had Kokiri next door to the MIT where they are now. And Kokiri's still there, Te Rahuitanga. They're still there. And we used to jump the fence and go play in the hay barn. DIC was MIT. And we used to see all these men come out of white cloaks, and we just thought that they were aliens. They were doing something strange in there. And so there were lots of cows in the paddock as well. And so we used to ask the older brother to put something red on and make the cows chase them. That was that fantasy back in those days. So it's actually not a true story. Red doesn't actually rack off a cow. And so we used to go and pick berries because they had this huge hedge of berries. And, silly kids back in the day, we used to go into those berry bushes, get pricked and everything. Not fill our little bags up or a T-shirt up, but we'd sit in the bushes and eat the berries.
Are you for daredevils?
But we used to try and make the cows chase my brother because he was wearing red around the berry bush because it was huge. And then you see people standing at where I would say NA block is now in their white cloaks with their hands on their hips thinking, those blooming kids,
I wouldn't blame you thinking if there were aliens. Just imagine you have a paddock of cows and then you have white cloaks. You think something dodgy is going on between those cows, man. And the berry is just there just to, feed.
But, we almost set the barn on fire with the hay.
I heard this story.
Yeah. Well,
how did it happen?
Just mischief kids playing with matches. My brother brought the matches over and he says, watch this. So he lit the match and next minute we're like, oh, my gosh. And so we were picking up anything and everything to try and put the fire out. Yeah. But we did. We didn't set the place on fire.
Did anyone, the white cloaks see you or the cows going, that's our home?
No, but the little sister went home and told Mum, so we all got a...
Oh, what a blab. Oh, right, sorry.
We all got a telling off and a
what
smack.
What a blab.
Yeah.
What a snatch. No.
Yeah, well, she's the baby sister, at the time. So anything she said, Mum believed.
Fair enough.
But that was our childhood.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty more in there. There's plenty more stories in there, but
that's the one.
Those are just some of the highlights.
Yeah. So compare that to your childhood in Ōtara and what it is now today. Would that stand up? Would you have your own kids stand up and tell their story and feel proud like that?
I would say they never got that upbringing that I had. We had a huge network of relatives around us growing up, so we could go to either side. It was different because I was a single mother raising two girls on my own. I think they turned out really well. But, we didn't have the network around those kids growing up. But I tried as much as possible to raise my daughters up with their cousins, which I think we did quite well because they're all quite close now. And, I always share with them about the stories we had as children and growing up and how free we felt. I can remember days where we didn't have to come inside till late at night, like it was pitch dark, 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. We would be still outside playing and sneak down to the Otara pools, climb the fence and go for a swim, and then you'd see the police car come out because the police station was on the corner of Alexandra and Beards Road, and you'll see a car come out. They knew we were in the pool, but we used to bob in there, so they used to drive past the fence and put their torches on there, knowing that we've all bobbed down. and they'd sit there because you could see the light.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were kind of holding our breath underwater, for as long as we could. And then we used to just kind of put our heads up so that we could get some air into our mouths, but not bob our heads up.
Yeah.
Because they could still see us. But, yeah, those are the silly things we did.
Yeah.
It's good childhood, actually.
Yeah.
Really good. But Ōtara's growing. I've seen, a lot of the old neighbours move out of the area. Newer generations are coming in. And Ōtara is just not the same as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is still that community environment, but, there's a lot more different gangs in the area because, growing up it was the Stormtroopers. That was the only gang that we knew of. I mean, like I knew of growing up, it was Stormtroopers because you always heard it. But now, and Tribesmen, actually. Those are the only two gangs. But, there's a lot more gangs out there now. So Otara has changed. The generations kind of gotten worse over the years. But Otara still has that community feeling.
That vibe.
Yeah, it still does. And I've been part of, like, civil defence that is part of Otara, like, way back in the early 90s. And I remember setting up civil defence at my last job, or Fizzy Specialties at the time, and they were like, what's civil defence? And I went, natural disasters. It's in the phone book. Because back then you had the phone book and all civil defence pages were in the phone book.
I remember that,
what you needed to do.
Yeah.
But never, ever did anyone know really what that was all about because they don't read the phone book. So I remember implementing civil defence procedures at a company that I last worked for, and it was kind of funny because they still have it. And I've moved on, like 20 years later, they've still got it. And the little diagram that I drew for, where everything was supposed to go. So, yeah, I would say I was always been a forward thinker about things.
Oh, absolutely.
And, like, getting them to paint a little fish, like, don't let wastewater go down there because it's going to affect the fish. And, like, because it was a place where we used a lot of ink as well.
Okay, yeah.
So being mindful where that waste was going, there should be a proper waste area where ink should be going.
Proper treatment, right?
Yeah. And it should be only stormwater going in this drain here.
We only drain rain. If I remember that slogan.
Yeah. And so, we got little fish painted on the concrete around the stormwater.
Wow.
Drains. That was years ago, though.
Yeah. I remember that because I remember the advertisement that came with the Auckland Council doing that on TV. And I remember the scary storm drain going, we only drain rain.
Yeah, and my boss at the time, his name is Lyman Gardner, who's Māori from the East Coast, and he says, what on earth is the stuff that you're wanting? This is going to cost money. And I says, yeah, but I've gone to civil training for a number of years, and this is what's in the phone book. Have you not read the phone book? I was just like oblivious. They are just so oblivious to it all. Over their head. And so, they just said, oh, well, we'll get the funds for it and we'll get it done. And so they did.
Wow. And
And then, civil defence is a real big thing nowadays.
Yeah. And just come to think how far it's gone through in terms of everything else. Just coming back to, like, when you mentioned that you're a forward thinker. I met you in around 2017 to 18. And I remember the first time I saw you, I thought you were like the bee's knees when I first saw you. And it was funny because I would sit by myself. Well, I was a loner because the first thing I was like, I'm not going to make any friends. I'm just going to focus on my school.
Yeah, I remember that day.
First 2 hours never lasted. All I hear is, because I was sitting next to Minta. Shout outs to Minta, by the way. I was sitting next to Minta and Benson. And then we went into class. And I felt our first class was, it was with Alice. Oh, bless her. Remember?
Oh, Alison.
Yeah, with Alison.
Yes.
Alison Hunter, and we were doing communications.
Yeah.
And then I sat at your table.
No, you asked to come and sit at our table.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we were like, oh, okay, yeah, come and join us. And so we all hit it off since then, 2017.
Yeah.
And we've all grown.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we've all grown since then. You know, we were students. I came with just life experiences.
Worthy life experiences, honestly. Because I remember, so what started off my career in council was Connor was sitting in one of my classrooms for Michael Andrews. No, it was FBI. So we had a smart student by the name of Sean. He comes in and he goes, "Oh, your student council are useless. They don't do anything. Look at our car park. I want you to go up to him and go ask him about the car parks as a bet." Like, okay, yeah, man, no, they sound useless. He flips the script on me and basically went, "Okay, prove it. Take some photos and come back to me." Yeah. And I was shocked. Like, no one has done that to me, like challenged me like that. And I went, "All right, I'll take the photos for you and I'll email it to you." So I went out, took photos, and I think you were out there with me. You were going, what are you doing? And I go, "I'm talking to Connor. He's the person that was doing he was co-chairman at the time. And I'm taking photos for him because he wants it for our car parks." And he goes, "Oh, good idea." And then I went back to him and he looks at the photos that I took and he goes, "All right, send them in the mail." And that's how I got the idea of going into council. And then, was it the year then or the year later that you joined council?
I was 2018. I started and then continued on to 2020. So I had 3 terms.
Yeah, both of us had 3 terms, yeah.
And it was really good because I learnt a lot from the student councils that I sat on because, you know, all I brought to the table was my life skills, you know. And what I experienced as being part of the student council was, wow, none of them have got life skills.
I'll be the first. I didn't have anything. Honest viewers, I didn't have any life skills. But when you had someone like yourself who was willing to go, "This happened to me, I want you to learn from it." It was beautiful because you learned everything from what you were saying. And not only us general members learned from it, but our higher ups too. And I want to discuss about the time that we were at the position as president and vice president, and how much of an influence that you had on students in terms of getting into the right positions during COVID, if that's okay with you. Because I always saw you as a beacon of hope.
Well, I think I'll have to start back in 2018. You know, I joined student council and all I had to offer the student council was life skills. Yeah. I thought, wow, you know, I'm going to learn something really cool here, you know, about the student body. And it was the complete opposite. Nobody mentored us, you know. We really had to find our way in the role and, you know, we didn't have the material to kind of look up and say, oh, what is a student council member supposed to do? Because I was just a general member. And, yeah, that was a real learning curve for me. And so I sat back for 6 months just observing what was going on, you know, how did we work together? How does things, you know, fit together as a student council? What am I supposed to do? But I always had that drive where I knew I had to go and listen to students somehow and listen to the issues that were happening. So that first year was just learning for me. And I spent the first 6 months just learning about student council and what I needed to do for students. Yeah. And then the following 6 months after that, I started thinking, oh, okay, I'll just set some small goals and see what happens, you know. And I achieved those small goals in the last part of the year. And then I thought, oh, well, I think I might make a better impact if I signed up for the following year. So 2019. Connor was the president then.
You were co-chair?
And I was co-chair. I thought, okay, I think I've learnt what I needed to learn and let's implement it the 2019. And so I slowly started mentoring the rest of the student council because a lot of them were all much younger. Oh, yeah,
I agree with that because I remember being in that general seat. I had my first year and I'm not going to lie, it was a very rough year because eager fish jumped into deeper water, and then deeper water became too much. But then it was nice to see the further light out there, and that was you and Connor, but mostly you, because we were at that point, we were very close, and you got into the level of personal where it became, okay, Vince, let's
take care of our our mental well-being, our well-being, and if you can't be okay with yourself, then step away and look after yourself, and then come back, because I suffered it as well. You needed
absolutely.
to back off and just look after you. And if things weren't right at home for me, then that was a sign to me, I need to pull away and sort myself out.
Absolutely.
And I'll come back. So I think I may have taken a month off.
I remember that, yeah.
Just for myself, and and then I come back and see, I was really refreshed.
Yeah.
And I says, hey, you guys need to do the same. If you guys feel like you're hitting a brick wall and it's all not okay, then step away and look after yourself.
Because I remember Connor was in his final years of the networking side of things, doing his industry project. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he was with a group. He was with a group outside of MIT the first time around, and I remember him just looking very drab and very tired. It got to the point he came into school sick one day, and I remember that because we told him don't come in. But then he came in because it was his birthday, and we did that whole gig that we did. But yeah, no.
The tomato cake.
No, this was after. That was before.
The following year, eh?
That was before. Remember, we put up a tablet of his face, and I slapped it. He came in, remember? That was during his time of his industry project.
Yeah, that's right. But, yeah. Tomato cake, yeah.
All right. So, thank you.
Tomatoes.
No, thank you. So he hates tomatoes. So it was the second year we did this birthday thing for Connor, and we made. I brain genius went tomato cake. So we took a normal rainbow cake from Cheesecake Shop, and we went up to Willing Cheesecake Shop and went, hey, would you make this?
Able to shape it into tomato?
And they basically went, sure, we'll give it to you for the price of the same cake. I went, perfect. But the thing was, if you remember, Fran, bless her soul, came up with more red dye.
And we ended up icing it, again, to make it more red because it looked pink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So... yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed my student council years, and then 2020 kicked in, and I was the president by this time.
Yeah, so you're on the top seat.
And COVID hit.
Yeah, and I remember, and I've never told this to you, this was your finest hour of just pure leadership. And I'm telling you this right now because as a VP looking up to you, you were beautiful. It was very strong, and I felt, and I don't know if you remember, I told you straight up, I was burnt out. I know
it was. I think I do remember you vaguely actually telling me that, and I thought, well, Vinny, if you're burnt out, you need to step away.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me that, and I made myself only focus on my industry project at the time. And I remember sitting down and I cried because I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But you said to me, and I remember this, is that you keep the position, you do what you need to do if you feel like you need to do it. If you can do it, do the capacity that you can do and just step away from it. And
that's where those changes came into play. We needed to support each other.
Absolutely.
Really needed that support.
Yeah. And I just remember your leadership just being so bright.
And I think that was that mother in me that came out. I mean, you're raising, I had a third child by this time, but you're raising your children, and I think that mother instinct kicked in.
Yeah.
And I was just looking for answers to say, well, hey, what do these students need? And thinking about my son being, 13 at the time, and I thought, wow, what will he need? So I went into mother mode, and I thought, well, he's going to need a laptop. One of these students got any access to Wi-Fi at home? How many laptops can MIT offer students, And that happened. And so when Gus and them came to me for some comms, I just says, oh, well, we need to know how many students are actually able to get laptops to be able to continue on with their learning journey online. And we need to ascertain whether they have access to Wi-Fi, And so MIT were really great in that response because they just reached out.
I remember that because ground zero, it was Gus going, okay, go. What government funding can we get from the government at the time? Because it was brand new for the government as well. So we had a brand new government who was going into a situation that they never faced in many years odd. And we were facing it as we were coming into it. So
I mean, and we, even though I wasn't, facing students face to face, there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We just didn't know how to operate in the COVID environment because it was our first year. And that was my first year as president. So, yeah, everyone was operating behind the scenes. And then, lastly, the last thing was how are we going to be able to keep students connected with their learning. So, and that's where we were trying to engage with students online.
I remember that. Oh, no. I remember that. And I remember DT being the guinea pigs for that start because they had the very first digital technologies orientation, if you remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and it got better and better over the years.
Yeah.
And we're in 2020, so 2 years. And then Micah's presidency and it just got better. The interaction online got better and better.
I will say this, that from teacher to student interactions was gotten better because you were able to speak up. And this is, and honestly, Will, at the back, if you wanted to see, this one was in your face going, why aren't you engaging with your students? Why aren't you doing your job? How come they're coming to me asking questions that only teachers should be asking? And I remember that, and I was just sitting there going, I was so,
It was actually a tough year for me too,
Yeah,
and
I remember
actually took
that.
on a lot. But you know what? I think it's been 2 years, and I've just focused on my own studies. And I look back at what we achieved over those 3 years. We achieved a lot, made a lot of changes. There's still lots of improvements that need to happen, but I mean, man, I'm actually proud of the 3 years.
Yeah.
Very proud.
I remember our last few months we were part of the council, and we sat at that last meeting that we had, and we both looked at each other going, we did what we did. We're just going to sit back and let the new guys do what they need to do.
But, it was like the end of the year, December 2020, it was just like, oh, man, that was hard work,
Yeah.
And I was happy to let it go.
Yeah. And I did something that I think had an impact, and I did it because I remember what you said to me the year of COVID was make an impact on someone, make a difference for someone. So I called on my counterpart. So I called him, and they were taking photos of the past and new council members, and I go, hey, look, I'm going to take a photo with you. I'm going to shake your hand. This is a symbol of me transitioning to you. And I remember doing the handshake with Les, our former council member, and I shook his hand. And I was like, I wanted to shake your hand personally, and I want you to know that whatever happens in the future, please do it with the love and care.
Yeah.
And I had that conversation with him. We took a photo, and there's a lovely photo of me and him shaking hands, and it symbolizes how much I believed in that person. So I hope they continue with that, because he looked at it in that way and he goes, oh, that makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, no, you have to make that impact. Like you made that impact on me. So with that said, thank you.
Thanks, Vinny.
I got to do that with David Riley because he was my impact during high school. You were my impact in my tertiary years.
Yeah.
You shaped me into who I needed to be in those years of being an amazing person. And I took it with me. And now...
and you're out there and you're growing. That is what it was all about. It was growing as a person. Take those skills, put them into your little toolbox, your 2-bit tool bag, and utilise them when you need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've always been of that philosophy, life is all about learning, and somebody's going to teach you something that's going to be useful for you later on down the track, and you're going to go, oh, I remember that happening to me. But, yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I've always looked at life as learning something.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should take that on board.
Yeah.
Because, people come into your life for a reason. You're either there to learn from them or they're there to learn from you. And it's a bit of give and take. And so over the 3 years, what I learned from student council, because you guys are you're a lot younger than me.
You're sick of a lot of kids, right?
Sorry?
You're sick of a lot of kids, right?
yeah, I was. Literally, you guys are. But, I mean, like, you guys gave me something to learn as well. And that was, like, being a little bit more humble about, other people. Give them the listening ear that they deserve. Don't come across as, oh, yeah, I know this, I know that. That's not what it's about. It's about somebody connecting with you and you connecting with them and actually listening to their story.
Yeah.
And letting them be themselves and then lifting them up when they need that lift, to be lifted. I mean, I did that with you.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, I know you taught me a lot of things too, Vinny, so it worked both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope anyone who's watching this is learning something, because as years come and the uncertainty becomes very, very, very visible, because a lot of people don't know what's going to happen in the near future. If we had to talk to past Vincent in 2018 or past Naomi in 2018, we had a very clear sight. But then 2019-20, spanner in the mix thrown into it, we didn't see that coming, and we had to adjust.
Yeah, you had to be adaptable, agile. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Adapt to the environment. And that's pretty much what technology is all about too. You adapt. But, and now that it's 2022, I'm giving back to the Student Council what they've given me as the Student Voice Coordinator for 2022 at MIT. So, again, I'm learning about myself again, something new about myself. And I think that the 2022 Student Council are going to be really good in their role. I mean, they're a really strong team together, and that's what it's about, supporting each other.
And once again, I'm going to keep saying this until 3005. They got a beacon behind them that's brighter. They could lead, and that's you, Naomi. And I hope you don't forget that you're a beacon of hope, and you always will be.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I always like to ask my guests this question, and there's always a good wrap-up question. So to those out there in Otara who are feeling the lowest at the moment, to your students who look for inspiration, that you look up to, what are words of inspiration, and or a quote that you would like to give out to them?
Oh, geez, what would I say? Life is going to be a roller coaster. Most definitely is. And, for people who get a little bit lost, always find that North Star within yourself, which is deep down inside. And that's that core value that you have. I mean, like, I'm driven by my values, and my values is always going to be family, because they're part of me, and respect others, and just don't brush people off, because I see a lot of that in the environment today, because everyone's busy doing things, but people never actually take the time to just stop and listen to somebody, whether they're a total stranger or not. I mean, I'm quite happy to go up to, somebody who wants some money for food. I'm quite happy to go out and buy them something to eat, but I won't give them my hard-earned money. I know that sounds hypocritical, but...
no, that makes sense.
I'm quite happy to give them a meal and sit down and talk with them. That's the type of person I am. But, when my advice to people is just be respectful and give somebody the time of day when they're really low, because you don't know how much that will actually help a person. But, be respectful while you're doing it.
Yeah. And I'll leave this to our viewers, and I'll tell them a story. So 2019 was the absolute worst year for myself. And then trigger warning for viewers, it does get a little bit graphic. 2019 was my absolute worst. I've hit rock bottom. It got to the point where a lot of dark thoughts came through my head. And I remember my support was right there with me, and the light started to brighten up. And then I remember you standing by going, "That's the most silliest thing you ever done, Vincent. Don't forget that you actually matter inside." And I've always taken that with me. And I've formed that, morphed it to where I am now. And now I've become the person that I need to be. Still needs to work on it. But just taking those words at that year where I was in my absolute low, and you made it up by saying that, and now who I am. And thank you again.
Keep growing, Vinny. Just keep growing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to our show, man.
Oh, it's been nice in here. Really nice. I actually like the environment in here. It's like the whole world is all blocked out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To our viewers at home, I hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoyed each other's company. Thank you again. Once again, Naomi, that is our podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Mwah.